Well, good afternoon. My name is Drew Bond, and I'm the president and CEO of C3 Solutions. We're really happy to have you here today. I'm hosting this Tech Voices with my new friend, Rob Niven, who's the CEO of CarbonCure Technologies. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and we're going to hear a lot from him in terms of his company and what they're up to. But before we do that, if you've come across this interview, just want to give you a little bit of background of us. C3 Solutions is a nonprofit educational organization. So we're dedicated to promoting free market solutions to our world's greatest climate, energy, and environment challenges. You can learn more about us at c3solutions.org, or you can subscribe to our free online news magazine at c3newsmag.com. Rob, that's enough of that infomercial. Rob, really, really good to have you today. Let me just let our audience know a little bit of background is, so Rob is CEO of CarbonCure. CarbonCure is on a mission to make concrete a climate solution, which I love the fact that the way that you've framed your mission, that this is not to get concrete out of the way, it's actually to make concrete part of the solution. And so you also say that reducing embodied carbon emissions in the built environment and transforming concrete plants into a worldwide network of carbon removal factories. So that alone is really fascinating to me, the fact that like concrete can be part of the solution. And so I love that is your mission. I love that CarbonCure is your name. And so please just tell us a little bit about you and how you got into this business.
Sure, Drew. I'd be happy to do that. And thank you so much for coming on. I've been reading newsletters for a long time now, and I'm really happy to connect in with you and your listeners. A bit about myself. I'm the CEO and founder and chair of CarbonCure. CarbonCure was built off of my thesis while I was studying and doing my graduate studies at McGill University about a decade ago. And it was really on this concept of how we could change the paradigm of carbon dioxide. Most people rightfully think of it as a greenhouse gas. But what we have discovered at that time was that you could also use it as a very important and value-added feedstock into making concrete. And with concrete being the most produced man-made material on the planet, second only to drinking water, it was an opportunity to have a really big impact, but do it in a very practical way where we could actually make concrete better and be part of that solution.
Yeah, and so how does your process work? Help us just sort of walk us through, for those of us that, the only thing we know about concrete is maybe that, we've seen one of those trucks that you have in the background there, but, or maybe we've experimented with it at home, but,
Yeah.
help us understand how that process works for you.
Well, I was hoping you'd ask that, so I put up this background on the video today so I could have a bit of visuals to work with. So this is a concrete plant behind me. It's this kind of concrete plant is based here in Victoria, British Columbia, where I'm located, but it's just about the same as any other concrete plant in the world. There's about 7,000 in the US or about 125,000 worldwide. So it's all around us, the product and in these plants, because concrete really has about a 45-minute shelf life after you've added water to the mix, there's so many of them because they have to be able to deliver that concrete from batching to the project site so quickly. So what we do is we work with existing concrete producers that are providing this essential building material, and we introduce a new ingredient into the mix. So in this case, we add carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is captured by other companies that may capture that CO2 as a waste product from other industrial emissions like ethanol production or ammonia or refineries. And in some cases, direct air capture, which is something we've shown recently. That CO2 arrives on site, and then there's that tank as the one that you see right here behind me, where that CO2 is stored on site. And that's where CarbonCure comes in. We retrofit these plants with some electronics and gas handling equipment for that CO2 to be added into the mixer. So all the ingredients are added separately and they're mixed together to form concrete. So you have cement and aggregate and water are the main ingredients, now CO2. And once that CO2 is added, it causes a very beneficial reaction where it turns from a gas actually into a solid, a mineral. So it's permanently locked away from ever being reintroduced into the atmosphere. But it's not just turning into a rock, but it's also turning into this mineral, which is actually improving the strength of concrete. And that's really important because we want climate solutions to also be not only good for the environment, but provide better products and also provide some economic benefits as well. So by using this technology and making these mineral carbonates, it increases the strength, it lowers the cost of production, and it allows concrete producers to differentiate themselves in the market. Because not only is there so much more construction happening right now, but everybody wants to buy something that's better for the environment. And this is a way that we can allow concrete producers to be able to meet that demand and save a few dollars at the same time. So today we're installed today we've licensed this technology to just over 700 producers worldwide. Our largest market's the United States, but we're selling into about 30 countries. So it's an idea and a technology that's really taken off.
So just to put a point on that, so this is not a technology that is in the lab waiting to be proven, waiting to be commercialized. You guys are in the market. You've actually, I mean, that's pretty astounding to me, because I know that, I mean, concrete is such a known, proven material that I think it would be really hard to break into in terms of adding a new ingredient. So you guys have done that and are doing that as we speak around the world. Is that right?
Absolutely. And concrete producers all around the world really have the same mindset. They have a very conservative view on business and certainly very, very community oriented as well. So they want to do well for the communities they serve, but they don't have the luxury of a lot of other industries to have that sort of discretionary budget to apply for innovation or clean technologies. So you really have to develop the right business model and the technology that is a very simple, easy retrofit, but it's low risk and provides very quantifiable benefits. So these are all the kinds of constraints that you have to apply. But once you get it right, we found that word of mouth spreads very quickly within this community of concrete producers. And there's a very high willingness to be able to do right for the communities in which they serve. And what we found is, despite some of that tepidness to take on innovation, once it does get out there, then we found that, and it's proven, is that these producers are very, very willing to adopt new technologies, but you just have to make it easy for them.
Yeah. Can you talk about some of the partners that you already have in terms of the concrete companies? Is that a fair question? It's not a secret.
Not at all. No, we really love to celebrate our producer partners, as we call them. It's because really they're the ones who are doing the hard work. It's one thing to develop an idea and create a technology, but there would be no environmental benefit if it wasn't for these producers to take on these new technologies and apply them. So like I said, there's over 700, so there's too many to list. But we found that probably the biggest segment of the concrete industry that we work with are actually those regional producers and a lot of mom and pop sort of plants as well, that are very, very connected in with their local community, and they're the ones that tend to be adopting quickly. I would recommend the best way to do that is to come onto our website and press the button that is called Find a Producer. And why I recommend that is because you can probably find a producer in your local community or state that's already adopted this technology, and you're probably not aware of it. So depending on where you are, it's an opportunity for you to connect in with some of those concrete producers in your region.
And talk to us a little bit. You've touched on it some, but I just want to kind of have a little bit more discussion around, the emission reductions. I mean, why is this needed? Why is this technology so important? I mean, it's novel, of course, that you're, capturing carbon and putting it in concrete, but like, why is this so important? Why does it matter?
Yeah. Well, if you're familiar with sort of some of the climate statistics, there's just about 35–40% of emissions are attributed to cities. And cities use a lot of energy, but they also are built out of a lot of materials, and they're continuing to grow very quickly. The way that cities are growing at a rate today of adding a New York City every 30 days for the next 40 years. So just think about that, and think about how many cities or how many buildings and roads and schools and homes need to be built at that pace. Most of that is built out of concrete, and concrete has a very high emission intensity due, one, to its sheer volume. There's so much of it produced. Naturally, it's going to make emissions, but also because it uses cement. And cement is a carbon intensive process, where a little less than 1 ton of CO2 is produced for every ton of cement that's created. Now, of course, concrete's an essential material. We need it because it's a very durable product that will withstand the more severe climate and weather related events, but it also lasts for decades. And these are all very good things for sustainability, but it's that carbon footprint that we need to solve for. So there's a lot of CO2 emissions that are attributed to cities and specifically concrete. So that's why it's such a big problem. If you think of it another way, is that if cement were a country, it would be the third largest emitter after China and the US. So 7% of worldwide emissions are attributed to this industry. Most people don't think about it though, despite it being all around us. So that's why it's a big deal. We also don't have alternatives. So I think you work in the solar industry. And obviously solar is an alternative to other forms of energy. But for concrete, it isn't as though we have another alternative just waiting to be used. You know, you can't build bridges or high rises. Well, some people think they can, like out of other building materials. And concrete is really essential. So we need to be able to find a way to decarbonize it. And that's why we take the perspective of we want to embrace concrete, but we want to be able to help in its decarbonization transition by providing very practical technologies that allow them to decarbonize, save money, and actually make a better product. And we do that by actually using CO2 rather than only emitting it in this industry.
Yeah, that's what I really love about your process is the fact that, I mean, the reality is that the world is going to continue to grow, and especially the developing world is hungry to develop. And so when we think about, you know, your point about cities and the number of equivalent New York cities that we're adding every month, I mean, to ask them to simply not grow is really not part of possible. And so, you know, instead you're providing a solution to help them grow, but help them grow in a way that is very sustainable using an existing product, but adding your element to it. So,
but your point about developing economies is so important. Like we could have wild success in the US and still not really have a dent on the climate impact. So we need to be able to make sure that this technology is applicable in emerging markets as well. And I think we've done that, and we've also shown that. So within those 30 countries that we serve today, I don't know the exact number, but probably about a third or a half of them are emerging markets. So that's where all of the concrete is being poured today because they haven't built their infrastructure, and the population growth is much higher than some of the other developed economies. So that's really where we need to have the biggest impact. We understand that, and we've really, really focused on deploying these technologies in those markets, probably sooner than most companies would. But part of the rationale for that is if we're really going to have that impact on the climate, we need to get in early, so very quickly, and start deploying these technologies in those markets as well.
Yeah, and talk about the economics, because you know, obviously it has to be affordable here. It's got to be especially affordable in the developing world. Where does your technology sort of sit in terms of does it make the product more expensive? Does it make it less expensive? Are there, you know, incentives in place? How do the economics work around it?
Probably before you even get to economics, is it has to be safe. No one wants to build a bridge that there's, you know, undue risk that it might fall down, or a school or a home. So it's that public safety priority, which is always number one, and that's the first, and also easy. Even if it did save money, if it was complex, there's really no appetite in this industry. So it has to be easy, and then it also has to save you some money. So these are all the constraints that you have to work with. So on this public safety side, as we have developed this technology so it's compliant with codes and standards. And so we need to be able to make sure that it's a safe product and that meets all those existing regulations. And those are important steps. We also make it fully automatic. So it's a one-day retrofit. It is an automatic process of adding CO2, just like you would add cement or aggregate or other chemical admixtures. So the batch operators and the truck drivers and the concrete finishers and contractors have no idea that CO2 has been added. And that's really important. So it's really a drop-in addition to what they're doing today. And then finally, economics. And this is where we put a lot of effort into providing this technology at such a model where we don't charge any upfront fee. So it's like a reoccurring revenue model, like a cell phone plan, if you will. Is you don't pay anything for the cell phone, but you pay on a monthly basis for the use of this technology. But the best part is that it actually saves more than it cost. So that allows concrete producers to be able to provide a low carbon concrete product into the market at the same price as what they were prior to using CarbonCure, but it has a lower carbon footprint. And we're able to do that by increasing the strength of the concrete, which allows concrete producers to use a little bit less cement in every yard of concrete that they produce with CarbonCure. And that cement savings not only provides that economic return, but it also doubles up on the carbon reductions. Because if you recall, cement is quite carbon intensive due to this calcination reaction that's required to make Portland cement. So by using less of it, you save money and you save carbon. And you unlock all of those benefits by actually mineralizing and permanently storing CO2 in the concrete. So that's how all the technology works and how the business model works, but they're so interlinked is you can't have a great technology without having a really viable business model as well. And I don't believe there's a way that you can have an impact, a true scalable impact to decarbonize the built environment, unless you're able to offer it at price parity to what the current product offering is, which would be a traditional concrete product. So all these things have to come together, but when you get it right, as we've shown, it can really scale up quickly.
Yeah. And so are you able to be economical without government incentives?
Yeah, we don't receive government incentives at all. There are some procurement policies which we support, which do prioritize low carbon concrete procurement in government projects, which is the largest purchaser of concrete, but we don't receive government subsidies for the deployment of this technology. It's done on the basis of the production cost savings that are able to be received. And also it does generate some carbon credit revenue, which is sold in the voluntary carbon market, which also provides that economic benefit and incentive for concrete producers to adopt these kinds of low carbon technologies.
Oh, interesting. That's so great. Congratulations on that business model. So give us some examples of projects where your technology is working well. You've talked about the multiple countries that you're in, but give us some examples of projects, like bring it home for us.
I'd love to. Yeah, so I think what I first want to say is there's thousands and thousands of projects, like everything you can think of, from high-rise towers in Chicago, Amazon HQ2 just out of DC, where I believe you're located, homes, airports, hospitals, really every kind of project that you can think of. CarbonCure has been used for those kinds of projects. But it always comes back to volume. And really what we want to think about is it's not about those signature projects as it is as much about volume. And most of the concrete is just simple things. It's sidewalks, it's residential home foundations, it's fence post holes. Like, it's the real basic stuff where most of the volume is going. And that's where you have the climate impact. It's not pursuing those really high profile projects alone, which are always fantastic, but it's about getting into as much concrete volume as you can. And that's about having the right technology coupled with the right business model, where it just makes economic sense to use it on everything. And that's really what we're trying to unlock here, and being able to replicate that in as many countries and market conditions as you can. And I think we're really starting to show that now as well. And that's a big priority for us, is to make it work in the US for as much concrete as possible, but as well as every other country.
Yeah. What's holding you back? What's keeping you guys from growing faster?
Well, this industry does have a sort of conservative mindset on technology adoption. So it seems as though every time we enter into a new market, you have to sort of prove it out in local plants, and that's fine. We're okay to do that. That does sort of add a bit of time to things. Once in a while, we do have some regulatory conformance work, so we have to go through that testing to enter into a new country. That slows things down a little bit. We are raising some capital right now to be able to bring more resources to bear to be able to accelerate this process. But I don't think that there's any other low carbon technology in the concrete industry that's as grown as fast as we can. It's just an enormous market for us to be able to support. So it's going to take some time, but unfortunately with climate, we don't have time. So we have this decade for us to have that impact that we're seeking to achieve, because this is the period where we really need to make a dent in the emissions from this industry.
Yeah, yeah. And what about, what's next on the horizon for you guys? I mean, it sounds like you've got this incredible solution for, a global challenge that makes up a third of emissions. But the fact that it's drop-in, the fact that it's economical without government incentives. I mean, government incentives are helpful sometimes, but I know from experience, having a business model that works without government incentives is key because the government incentives can change. So, from your perspective, you must have a lot of things on your plate. I think you're about to head to an airport next, probably as a part of your fundraising process. But what's next on the horizon for you guys? I mean, what do you see as the most exciting things in the coming year?
Well, our North Star is 500 megatons of CO2 emissions per year. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So how do we do that? If you break it down, it's more innovation. So we really pioneered this space called CO2 utilization. So that's the idea of using CO2 practically to create value, and in our case, concrete. So by building it from the ground up, as we really deeply know the science. So we're building other innovations that are complementary to what you see behind me that use CO2 in a concrete site to create more value and greater carbon reductions. So it's more innovation. So we're building a platform right now of other hardware solutions which use more and more CO2. And one of them, which is what we call our reclaimed water technology, was the winner of the Carbon X Prize, which was a global competition that lasted 5 years. And the prize purse was about $20 million for that. So more hardware that uses more CO2 at every concrete plant, more digital solutions which enable those technologies to be deployed more quickly and to be able to generate more transparency in the carbon impacts in concrete. Another thing that we're doing is trying to expand the commercial deployment as fast and as far and wide as possible. So this means more deployment across the US, but also opening up many, many more markets. So Middle East, Europe, Latin America, Southeast Asia, East Asia, those are all areas where we need to get into those 125,000 concrete plants. So more technology, more deployment. We're doing some vertical integration right now where we're looking to capture our own carbon dioxide to be able to streamline that process. So we are a turnkey solution of capturing CO2 and utilizing CO2 in a value-added way. And also promoting a lot of policies, especially around green procurement. And finally, promoting high quality voluntary carbon markets, because that's also a key driver for our business, is making sure that we maintain only the highest quality carbon credits, because that certainly drives the adoption of these kinds of technologies.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot on your plate, a lot of exciting things in your future, I can tell. I think I, for one, would love to know, and maybe you can answer this offline. I'd love to know how to invest in your company. And I'd also love to know where I can get those carbon credits, because I think oftentimes when people think about carbon credits, they think about, buying trees to offset carbon, which is great. But this idea of like, essentially taking CO2 and capturing it in concrete that's going to be there for a lifetime or more is pretty amazing. So
I
congrats.
think the credit side is people also like to invest in their communities. So
Yeah.
this is not a tree in a rainforest that may or may not burn, and who knows if that's actually been protected. Is you can go down and see where that CO2 has been stored in your community. So if you please come to our website for any more information on credits or where to buy CarbonCure concrete. You can find all that information there, and always happy to talk about investment as well.
Well, good. Well, good. I was going to ask you, just again, reiterate your website for folks who want to learn about it. I was there last night, and a lot of good, helpful information. So resources and more about your process. So your website again is
www.carboncure.com. The company's name is CarbonCure, and we'd be happy to have you there. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
great. Well, thank you, Rob. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you for joining Tech Voices. I know our audience always loves to learn about new technologies and just innovations that are happening across the market space. And so I look forward to watching you as you grow and as you expand your business across the globe. And definitely wish you all the success.
Thanks
So
very much, Drew. It's been a really pleasure to be here with you and this opportunity to speak to your listeners. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much.
yeah, thanks for your time. And yeah, for those listeners, thanks for listening. If you liked this interview, please share it on the video, the social media, and so forth. Subscribe to our news magazine. As Rob said, he's a subscriber. It's
Yep.
free, it's painless. We only send you, I think, 4, maybe 5 emails a month, no advertisements, and just try to provide valuable insights and information to what's happening in the clean tech space, energy, environment writ large. So, anyway, thank you again for your time. This has been Tech Voices, and I'm Drew Bond, the CEO and founder of C3 Solutions, and this is Rob Niven. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All
Bye-bye.
right, see you.